Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Summer. I'm your host, Brian. I'm happy to be with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about the Lightning Network, and we're going to be doing an intermediate jump into what is Lightning, why does Bitcoin need it, why do we need it, what does Trustless mean, the fairness protocol. We're not going to go crazy technical, but definitely a step up from base level. So let's jump right into it without any further ado. Out there, it's cold. In here, it's always Bitcoin Summer. Okay, great. Thanks for joining me again today. Like I said at the top, we're going to be talking about Lightning Network episodes, but if you forgot to watch the last episode, we did, it was another Lightning-centric episode, and we talked about balance of Satoshi setup and opening a dual-funded channel, and that was just the previous episode, so it should be pretty easy to find, but as I alluded to at the front, we also jumped into the basics of the Lightning Network back in September. And if you want to check that out, I'll have a link right. It'll be on either side. I don't ever remember which one it is, but just click on that and you can check out the basics of the Lightning Network. So like I said, we're going to be doing kind of a step up today. So let's get into that. Intermediate level. What is Lightning? What is Lightning? You know, it's a hard question to answer in a few amount of words, let's put it. So that's why I kind of wanted to put these slides together and make sure we're all on the same page as to what Lightning is. I run a Lightning node at home, and I talk about it like you guys already know what that is. So I wanted to just kind of backpedal a little bit and go a little bit deeper into the detail as to what that means. So for Lightning basics, obviously check out my old video. This is another step up. So you can't have one without the other. So obviously check that out first. But why was Lightning created? We're going to talk about today. What do we mean by being trustless? What does a 2 of 2 multisig contract mean? And we're going to talk about prior state channels. We're going to talk about closing your channels. And we're going to be talking next week, or actually, I might not be next week because I'm going to be doing an how to change your alias video as well on your node. But definitely the next in this series, which will be 1 or 2 weeks, depending on how the schedule works out. We're going to be talking about gossip and pathfinding. So make sure to check that out and hit the subscribe button in case you don't want to miss the next couple episodes here. So first slide here, why does Bitcoin need the Lightning Network? And I know that sounds strange, but Lightning was developed to aid in Bitcoin's adoption. And these are a couple of reasons why. It's just kind of scratching the surface. There's a much larger, bigger story to this, but that's beyond the scope of this episode. So one of the reasons was to keep the block size small. And the blocks are what the transactions come through on. And if the block sizes were to be bigger, that means that you can carry, obviously, more transactions per block. And the reason why the developers of Bitcoin did not want this to happen, and which was a reason of a great debate back in 2016, 2017 about keeping the block size small, is we would lose the decentralization of the Bitcoin network. The great part about it, and the reason why I run a node, is because it's very economical to do so. Because I don't have to buy so much hardware space. I don't have to buy so much storage for the entire Bitcoin network because each block is so small. And therefore, it's only like a couple $100 to start your own node at home with your own parts, and you can build it yourself. And I have a video on that as well up on the top, one of these sides. So another reason why the Lightning Network works great with Bitcoin is it keeps the transaction costs down, and we'll go over kind of why, and we go over a little bit more about that in the basics video. But if we keep the block sizes small, this will help in scaling into the future. And the global domination of the Bitcoin network is going to require scale. So let's say the Visa network. Now that processes most credit card payments in the entire world. That's 40,000 transactions per second during peak times. It would be impossible, especially while keeping Bitcoin protocol the way that it is, it would be impossible for Bitcoin to scale to that level while keeping it cheap to run a node, to keep a verification node running for just normal people like you and me. So what does trustless mean? Everyone talks about Bitcoin and Lightning being a trustless network. What does that mean? Doesn't that sound like a bad thing? Well, trust is not required on Bitcoin or the Lightning Network. It is a nice to have thing, but not a requirement of the Bitcoin network. And that's the great thing about the Bitcoin network. It's this optionality of having to trust your partners or the person on the other end of the transaction. You are free to use Lightning with or without trust, depending on your needs and depending on the use case for you. And so how does that work exactly? And that's what the developers call the fairness protocol. And the fairness protocol makes sure that we can have fairness in the network without a central authority. So that's written into the code. So all you need to trust is the software or the protocol. And the protocol properly aligns the incentives and the disincentives of each player in the Bitcoin network, or the Lightning network in this case. Now, this really, and this goes on a broader scale as well. This really, ramps up, especially in my mind, the interesting, intricate argument of the game theory of Bitcoin. So the game theory of Bitcoin is basically what would incentivize a nation state or even an individual like me to use or not use Bitcoin. And that is the game theory. And we see it playing out on a grand macro scale. But within the Lightning Network, these incentives and disincentives, they create this game theory of, to cheat the system, you get punished accordingly. How are your funds safe in a 2 of 2 multisig? A 2 of 2 multisig means you and your partner each own a key to unlock that Bitcoin. That is done within a funding transaction. So you open a channel with your partner on chain. So all of the opening on the Lightning Network is done on chain. That's the only transaction. That and the closing transaction are the only transactions done on chain. Every other transactions, or in the Lightning Network, they're called payments. Those are all done on a side chain, which is the Lightning Network. So the amount in that channel is called the channel capacity. And so what you do is actually what the protocol does is sign a commitment transaction. And this is the refund transaction. If you own the Bitcoin in the funding transaction, you still own it. So if you open up with a partner and you have that as as outbound liquidity, that is your Bitcoin. All of that outbound liquidity is your Bitcoin until you push a payment outwards or one gets routed through you. And that we can talk about that more in detail later. If a partner stops responding, the commitment transaction is broadcasted on chain and the funds are returned back to you. So your funds are always safe. Those funds that are outgoing capacity, those are always safe. Those are always still your Bitcoin. And that is the beauty of this 2 of 2 multisig contract feature that the Lightning Network boasts. So what is prior state cheating? Prior state cheating is it's sort of complicated, but let me try to break it down in the most simplest terms that I can do. So each subsequent transaction or payment that you have on the Lightning Network is its own state. So it constantly updates to the next state once each payment goes through. So what if a partner cheats and let's say your partner loses or transfers Bitcoin over to your side of the channel, but they want to revert back to the older state where it says that they have more Bitcoin than what they actually have because they've sent those sats out. Now, this is where the game theory comes into play. There is a punishment feature. the cheater who tries to revert to the previous state, and the protocol will sniff this out, hopefully, and this is why you want your Lightning node on 24 hours a day or have another contingency plan going in place of that. The cheater loses all of their Bitcoin. So if they try to cheat, they lose all of their Bitcoin in that channel. So each payment has a time lock delay, and that's your partner gets paid immediately, and you're on a time delay if that channel gets closed, and then a revocation secret that'll bypass the delay, and it releases payment to both parties immediately. And this is an elaborate part of the Lightning Network. So, having channel backups and managing those, that's highly, highly recommended. So each commitment destroys the ability to use the previous commitment. And so that's the beauty of prior state and using prior states to cheat, is that there is a punishment mechanism involved, which is very important to the Lightning Network. So let's talk about closing channels. We can have a mutual close, a forced closure, or a protocol breach. Now, the mutual close is the preferred method. What happens in this mutual close, the process that it follows is the pending payments need to clear first. It's similar to a commitment transaction. There's no time lock, so your funds are distributed once it clears on chain. There's no time lock. It doesn't have to wait for the other partner to respond. And on-chain fees are paid by the opener. So that's what happens in a mutual close. A forced closure is you get no consent from your partner to close. You just want to close it, and you're going to do it right now. And so if one partner's unavailable, you'll have to do a forced closure if you want that channel closed. So that's when the last commitment transaction is published. The on-chain fee is higher for this method. It's usually up to 5 times higher, so be careful when you're forced closing, especially if you were the opener, because you're going to be paying that. And there's also the time lock. This is where that time lock gets enforced. So your partner's funds go out immediately if you're the one who forced closed, so that goes to them. That automatically gets settled. And you have to wait. It's set to default 2 weeks. I think it's 2016 blocks. And I think you can adjust that within your node as well. And so the third type of transaction closure is the protocol breach. So this is cheaters are easy to detect. So don't worry about people cheating. It's very easy to detect. But like I said, your node has to be running continuously. So you can also set up watchtower nodes, and this will check your channel states and make sure everything's in line. And we're going to have a video on that down the road, so be on the lookout for that. So next time, maybe not the immediate next time, but I think probably 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing gossip and pathfinding. So we're going to dive even a little bit deeper into the Lightning Network. And the gossip on the Lightning Network actually very much intrigues me, because this sort of dictates whether or not you get to route transactions through your node. Because if you are a high gossip node, if you're on the network and people are talking about you, or other nodes are talking about you, you are much more likely to be a route for somebody's payment. So super fascinating angle of the Lightning Network, and we're going to be talking about that in a couple weeks. So hit subscribe and like if you've liked this episode, and please check me out on the podcast. I am going to be doing an audio only, and that will be uploading shortly. So go check that out on your favorite podcast app under Bitcoin Summer, or go visit bitcoinsummerpod.com. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy your weekend.